Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Prachar Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prashant Devasar Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shasi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
So, Srila Prabhupada, how much do we know about Srila Prabhupada?
You want to know about Srila Prabhupada?
You want to know?
Yes.
If you know Srila Prabhupada, then you can know Krishna. He's given us complete knowledge of Krishna by his words, his books, and his own spiritual realizations. So and many people have this idea that Prabhupada is just one of the many great sadhus that came from India, came to the West, and started a spiritual movement. Okay, you just ruined everything.
Nobody's able to hear you, Bhakti.
Can you hear me back there? See, you can't hear me, but they can.
Maybe you should turn the mic,
Speaker
speaker this side.
Maharaj, can you say something?
Let me know when you're ready.
I'll just sit here. I'll adjust him on the phone.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada, as we were mentioning that a lot of people don't know Prabhupada and they assume that he is just one of the great spiritual teachers that came from India and started a movement in the Western countries, which was somewhat fashionable during those times, the 50s, the 60s, 70s. Many yogis, tapasis, sadhus, personalities, who are in one sense spiritual adept, others who are charlatans, who came to the West to begin some spiritual movement in the West. But Prabhupada was not any of those categories. And we get a little insight of Srila Prabhupada's actual appearance in this world and along with the mission that he came to deliver. And that is from, there's one Purana is called the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. The Brahma Vaivarta Purana, there is a statement by Krishna himself, Krishna speaking. And he's speaking to Gaura Devi, the personification of the Ganges River. And he says to her, within 5,000 years, my mantra Upasaka will come to this world and take the chanting of my name to every corner of the world. Now that's pretty much an exact statement coming from the Purana. So that was spoken over 5,000 years ago. So you might say that's somewhat of an indication of Srila Prabhupada, but then there was a second prophecy that came by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was Krishna himself, who appeared about 540 years ago, which he said he was speaking to the great sage Sri Narada Muni. And he said that there will be a great personality who will come, and he will be known as my Sanataki Bhakta. Sanatha means the best of all bhaktas, or you might say general, the leader of all the bhaktas. And he will take the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to all places around the globe. And so that was the second statement that kind of illustrated Srila Prabhupada's appearance. And then there was a third one by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the end of the 1800s, wherein he was looking into the area of where Lord Chaitanya appeared, which is known as Yoga Pit. You can still go there today. And he had a vision. It wasn't a dream, it was actually a vision. And he saw people from the brown race, the white race, black race, red race, yellow race, all of the 5 races in the world holding hands and singing together, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana. So he concluded that soon a personality will appear in this world who will take Lord Chaitanya's mission all around the world. So these 3 statements, if you take them together, they pretty much indicate or didn't come to start a religious movement. He was asked by Krishna personally to come to this world at a time when the world was quite turbulent. The world was going through a lot of crises in terms of what we say, throwing out all of the traditional ideas on how to live life. There was movements of upsurging that reject everything conventional, reject everything that your parents stand for, and become free. Tune in, turn on, drop out, which was the hippie movement. But along with that, there were many political movements that were defying the standard status quo. And that was going worldwide. There was a lot of upsurging. And of course, the black movement, in order to give people from the black race equal rights within society, that was a strong movement also. And that caused a lot of violence. So, and of course, the Vietnam War was going on, and there was a lot of protests against that. And so it was kind of a turbulent time in the world. And Srila Prabhupada appeared at that time. Someone had asked Srila Prabhupada, why didn't you come earlier? He said, you weren't ready. You weren't ready. So he came. Now, many years ago, I'd say close to 20 years ago, I was sitting in Bhakti Chulu Swami Maharaj's room in Mayapur. And there was a gathering of all of Prabhupada's senior disciples, men and women, to speak about Prabhupada according to their own personal experiences. And so one devotee, I won't mention his name, but he said, I was with Prabhupada, and if you spend time with Prabhupada, he was always talking. He wasn't generally quiet. He was talking about making plans to spread Krishna consciousness. He was always formulating ideas, asking devotees, what do you think? Can we do this? Can we go here? Can we open this up? In other words, Prabhupada was constantly in a mood of expanding Krishna consciousness. Because he knew also, he had 3 heart attacks. On the 3rd heart attack in 1967, the doctor said actually, astrologer said that actually he was destined to leave the world at that time. But he prayed, and his disciples also prayed, that please give our teachers some more time. Prabhupada also prayed, our movement hasn't begun. He prayed to Krishna, and Krishna allowed him to stay for 10 more years. So he was on high energy. He knew he didn't have much time, and he had a big project in spreading Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada was intense. He was either talking about how to expand Krishna consciousness, or he was educating whoever was there with him about Krishna, about devotional service, about our relationship with Krishna. So that was Prabhupada. But this time, as this devotee was explaining, Prabhupada was very quiet, extremely quiet, unusually quiet. And he was massaging Prabhupada. It wasn't true to Kirti's personal servant for many years. And he was massaging Prabhupada. He was Prabhupada's bodyguard, actually. And one time during this massage, Prabhupada broke the silence in a very mystical way. And he just started to speak. And he said, I was with Krishna in the spiritual world. And Krishna said, you come to the material world and you preach. And I said to Krishna, and Prabhupada's talking about himself, I said to Krishna, material world, horrible place. Horrible place. He didn't want to go. But then Krishna said, no, you go. You write some books and I'll protect you. And Krishna wanted me to come and do this work. So Prabhupada said, I came on behalf of his desire to, and at that time, it was the time for Lord Chaitanya's movement to actually spring around the world. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, he appeared in 1486 in India. And during the 48 years that he was there, he was able to take Krishna consciousness all over the subcontinent of India. There's books that are not so popular, but they're available. How Lord Chaitanya went from village to village, town to town, temple to temple, province to province, traveling for 18 years in South India and spread Krishna consciousness everywhere. So at one point, the devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, well, Lord Chaitanya made practically everybody in India Krishna consciously spread the chanting of the holy name everywhere. Why did he take it to the rest of the world? Logical question. And Prabhupada said he left it for me to do. Prabhupada makes this point in many places. Krishna can do anything. Krishna can force you to become Krishna conscious, but he doesn't do that. He wants you to surrender voluntarily. He doesn't want to force. Force is an artificial way to get someone to do something. And Krishna can do that. He's all powerful. But that's not how he operates. He wants you to surrender voluntarily to the process of bhakti. And so he empowers those who are qualified to receive this empowerment and who dedicate their lives to spreading Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was such a person. And when Prabhupada came to the United States, it was a very difficult time. He said, I was trying to find first-class men to become devotees. People who were actually intelligent, who had some sukriti, some knowledge. So I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't find any second class either. Third and fourth class, that's all I could find. But he said, that's what Krishna sent me. scientist, and he also came to meet Prabhupada when he first came. And he was quite an intellectual, also a great devotee of the Lord. But aside from that, Prabhupada had to deal with the hippies. People who were looking for something better, something different. They had been studying or reading about Eastern religion, and we didn't have any clear understanding of what it was, but we were trying to experiment and learn more about it. And Prabhupada was there, and they would come, and Prabhupada opened the storefront on 26 Second Avenue in New York and started having evening programs, inviting the hippies. That's all there were, practically there everywhere. The hippies and what we call the derelicts who would sleep on the streets, drink all day, and just fall asleep wherever they were, and then wake up the next morning looking for the next bottle. Prabhupada had to climb over the derelicts even to get into his room sometimes. So it wasn't easy for Prabhupada. Here's a man who was, a personality who was, first class. He's Paka Vaishnava, has all good qualities, but he's in the lowest form of social environment. But still, he accepted it as Krishna's arrangement for his development of his movement. And he had to somehow educate us in the process of Krishna consciousness, which was very difficult. One time Prabhupada was in one little place, and he had a little room, and there was a curtain dividing the room, and there were the groups of hippies that had come to see him, but they were doing their own thing. And Prabhupada was in the other room, and they were doing all kinds of yoga and this and meditation and that. Prabhupada didn't interfere with that, but at the same time he was teaching what is real yoga. So one time when a gentleman came, he saw what they were doing in the room, and he saw Prabhupada. He said to Prabhupada, what are they doing? Prabhupada said, I don't know what they're doing. So this is what he had to experience when he tried to experience it. And then there was also really difficulties. His tar brother was stolen. His tape recorder was stolen. One drug-induced hippie chased him to beat him up. Papa ran out of his room. I mean, what he had to go through to start this movement. And actually, one time, Prabhupada was thinking, well, I came here and I'm trying to find people to teach them the process of bhakti yoga and devotion to Krishna. But it's so difficult. And I don't know, they don't seem to be able to understand things. So he was thinking, maybe I should go back. So he would go back to the docks where the boats would come in from Candramauli. And he would check when the boats were going back to India. And he would ask the proprietor there about the schedule. And the man would give him the schedule, and then Prabhupada would just leave. And he would come back another day and ask the same thing. So one day the man said, you're coming every day asking about when the boats are leaving, but you're not buying any tickets. Prabhupada was thinking, I should stay longer and do another try. I mean, he wasn't getting discouraged, but at the same time, he wasn't having any tangible results. It was very difficult. But the persons who came to see Prabhupada, they were curious, they were interested, they were fascinated by this Indian gentleman. And they liked him, although a lot of times they couldn't understand what he was saying. I mean, I also had that experience. When I first heard Prabhupada's lectures, his Indian accent connected with his London brogue together. It was hard to understand what Prabhupada was saying. You really had to just kind of like tune in, and then after a while, it became a little bit easier to understand. But so even then, Prabhupada had a hard time on it, giving them the knowledge. But he never gave up because he saw there was some interest, there was some spark of desire to learn. So he tried to fan that as much as he could. And he was having programs each week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting at 7 p.m. every night. And he would have a little kirtan. And Prabhupada would cook before they came. And then at the end he would serve out the prasad. They would all sit down. He would cook it, and he would also serve it. And then everyone would leave after the prasad was over, and Prabhupada would clean up. He did all of these things. And then one day, or one evening, you might say, two of the gentlemen who were there, they said, you know, Swamiji, can we help you clean up? Prabhupada said, oh, I was waiting for someone to ask. He didn't want to give them any imposition. He wanted to do everything for them. And then when they came forward and showed some interest, he would use that to inspire them, give them more opportunities for service. And that's how things started to develop. But the thing is, they liked Prabhupada, even though it was very difficult for them to understand what he was saying. They liked him because he was so, what we say, personal. He took a personal interest in each and every person who came. And at the same time, they could see that he was trying to give them something, although they couldn't understand what it was. Prabhupada was relentless. He kept preaching, preaching, preaching. And gradually people started to understand. There wasn't any books in those days. All we had was, of course, Prabhupada had started back to Candramauli magazine in 1944. And at that time, there was only one page. One page was the whole magazine on both sides. But then when Prabhupada came, he started to, and finally at one point someone donated a printing press. And then he started to expand Bhakti and made it into a magazine. You see some of the old editions really, the drawings are quite different than what you see now. But anyway, what I'm trying to emphasize is the difficulties, and both with living in America, which wasn't easy for Srila Prabhupada because the weather was cold. When Prabhupada first came to New York, there was a blackout that lasted for 11 days. The whole city blacked out for 11 days. Prabhupada said I was sitting in my apartment all alone. And all I did was chant. Someone brought me some candles. And then he had his own little satchel of some movie, some chip fries. He didn't eat much. He said after that, the statistic was the population increased a lot. So Prabhupada said, what do people do in the dark? You know? When he was chanting Hare Krishna. So I remember that. Actually, I was at my home. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I remember that blackout. How it stopped the whole city for 11 days. It was really quite calamitous, and it was also during it was the winter of 1965. Yeah. So it was the winter time also. It was difficult. So this is just to illustrate that Prabhupada knew why he was there. He knew he was sent by Krishna to bring Sanatana Dharma, the teachings of the Vedic culture, and especially the principles of bhakti, to the Western world. Lord Chaitanya had said, Vritti, Vitti, Achi, Agar, Arigram, what's the rest of it? Now, Prachur, more, and more Nam, that in every town and village, my name will be chanted. So Lord Chaitanya made that prophecy that throughout the whole world, someday all the whole world will be chanting the glories of Lord Chaitanya, or the whole world will be God conscious. So Lord Chaitanya came to do that, and Prabhupada was his personal representative to make it happen. And then he gathered, of course, so many of us to teach us and also to inspire us to do the same. After some time, he would also ask some of his pledging disciples to go to different places and open up preaching centers. So then there was New York, and then it came to San Francisco, and Los Angeles, Montreal, Santa Fe, Mexico, and gradually other places, and then it went back over to Europe. And the first place was London, when 6 of Prabhupada's disciples, three Grihastha couples, went to London to start Krishna consciousness there. Prabhupada lent them $1,500. He said, this is a loan. It means you have to pay it back. And because at that time, in the UK, you couldn't get in unless you could show you had some resources, some finances. So the devotees, what they did, one couple would go in and show that they had $1,500. They weren't just hippies coming to, find some park to lay in. And then they would show, and then they were allowed in. Then they would wire the money to the next company, and everybody, all three couples got in. But they were lost. They didn't have any place to go. And they were living in basements, trying to meet some people here and there. They were doing some street kirtan, and finally things started to go. And that's when they met the Beatles. And then when they met the Beatles, we got some support, especially from George Harrison, who helped print the first Krishna book. He gave $19,000. Shama Sundar, and Malati were husband and wife. And Shama Sundar was someone of an adventurous. He liked challenges. He liked difficult situations. So he made his way to meet George. That was a difficult thing. But finally became friends with George because George had some what we say, inclination towards Krishna consciousness. He heard a happening record where the devotees were chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. He liked it. So when he met Shama Sundar, he said, hey, I've been looking for you guys. And so a friendship developed. And then Prabhupada had just finished his Krishna book at the time, but he needed the money to print it, and we didn't have any money in those days. There was no congregation. And whatever money we could get was from people giving donations, but then we would have to solicit donations, or if devotees joined anything, they would bring whatever money they had and give it, and we would use that. So at this particular time, Prabhupada said to Shamsundar, ask George to sponsor the printing of the book, which was $19,000 at that time, which was a lot of money in the 1960s, 1970s, late 60s. And Shamsundar didn't want to do it because, if a person has money, people think they become friends for their money. So they didn't want to put any impediment in that relationship. So he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to do it. But Prabhupada said, okay, you go to his home, and then Krishna will help you. Prabhupada said, Krishna will help you. So one night they arranged for dinner. It was George, his wife, and Shyam Sundar, maybe one or two other people. And they were talking. It was in the evening time, and I had just finished the evening meal. And then Shyam Sundar was looking for the opportunity to ask. And then he brings it up. Swami Ji has just finished writing in the pastimes of Krishna, which was now known as Krishna book, and he would like you to sponsor the printing of this book, and it's $19,000. When George heard that, his face just dropped, like he was in shock. And as soon as that happened, all the lights went out in the house. And then a lightning bolt hit, and all the lights went out, and there was silence. And after some time, the lights came on, and George had a big smile and said, how can I refuse that? He thought was a Krishna will help you. So that's how we got Krishna book, published. So Prabhupada chance and knew that by taking a chance, Krishna's mercy would come through and make things happen. So that's what that was Prabhupada. So the movement gradually started to expand, and then Prabhupada was sending devotees to Germany, and they also went to Yugoslavia, which is now known as broken up into 6 countries: Croatia, Slovenia, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro. But that was Yugoslavia at the time. They were preaching there in the 1970s also. So gradually, the movement started to spread, and Prabhupada started to write more books. And then we had something. The first book distribution indication that we could actually put books on the street came from a very unusual situation. And this is how Krishna consciousness seemed to just fall in place. 2 devotees were driving their car and they pulled up into a gas station. And they asked for, those days, they would have an attendant come out and you would say, give me this much worth of gas. And he would put the thing in your thing. Now it's a lot different. Nobody comes out, put your card in, and you're gone. So anyway, so when it came time to pay for the gas, they realized they didn't have any money. So they said to the attendant, would you accept this book in exchange for the gas? And it was a Christian book. They happened to have it on in their car. And the guy said, yeah, sure, why not? And then that story got back to the devotees, and then they started to understand you could do books in public, and that was the spark that turned into the fire of book distribution. And then we started doing books on the streets. And that became, of course, Srila Prabhupada's way of spreading Krishna consciousness fast. And that's how we got money for opening temples. Because there was no congregation in those days. The money was coming in from book distribution mostly. And from people who would join our movement. I remember when someone would come to New Vrindavan, we'd ask him, how much money did you bring? That happened to me too. When I first joined in New York City, I was in the New York Temple, and I met the president of New Vrindavan, Kaladri. And I was curious. I wanted to get away from the city and go to a nice rural environment and practice spiritual life there. So I heard about New Vrindavan, so I walked up to him and I said, I heard you have a spiritual community in West Virginia. Can I come and join? He said, yeah. I said, what am I here to do? He said, just bring you money. Fortunately, I was pretty poor in those days. So whatever money I had wasn't much. But there was some devotees that had a little bit more. Such as Swami. We joined together in New York City, and he got hit up for more than $1,000 at the time. They tried to get, they were selling me books. Some one girl was selling me books, and she would always ask me how much money I had in the bank, and I would always tell her half is what I had. She said, "Oh, that's just enough." She's still there in Vrindavan now. Her name is Devi Shakti, and she's an amazing personality. She used to roam around New York City looking for young men to sell them as many books as they could and get as much money as they could. Because we didn't have there was no congregation. We didn't have any congregation at that time. Everybody was an in-temple devotee. So there was no else. Once in a while, one or two devotees would have a job, such as Jayananda. He was driving a taxi and he would give all his money to Prabhupada for whatever Prabhupada needed it for. So it was a difficult time to expand the movement. But Prabhupada knew why he came, and he knew if he simply prayed to Krishna, depended on Krishna, and worked in an intelligent way, he would be very successful. And of course, in due course of time, things started to develop. And there were so many wonderful pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was very personal. He was always available in all those days. The devotees would always come to see Prabhupada. In the evening, he would always have meetings with the devotees. They could sit with him, they could talk with him. Prabhupada would talk, would read Krishna book. And sometimes Prabhupada would say, give me Krishna book. And then he would pick a story. And he always picked the story of Krishna killing demons. He liked those stories. So sometimes Prabhupada would be reading Krishna book story, and Prabhupada would be laughing. And the devotees would think he's reading his own books and he's laughing. And then Prabhupada picked up on their thought waves and he said, actually, I am not writing these books. Krishna is speaking, I'm putting the words on page. These are Krishna's words. And so he made us understand that he was simply a channel, a medium for whatever Krishna wanted to give us. So he was what we call transparent via medium. He was completely transparent because he had no personal interest. He was simply trying to give Krishna in the best way that he could, according to time, place, and circumstance. And that was Prabhupada. And he had to undergo many, many challenges, so many challenges. His health was always failing, but he never let that stop him from preaching Krishna consciousness. And there's many, many interesting stories of how this movement spread, which is really quite phenomenal. At one point in the United States, we were distributing hundreds and thousands of books every year. In fact, in 1972, book distribution started to take off. And Prabhupada would always be interested in the scores, how many books. And then he would hear the totals, and he would say, all right, now next year you double it. And so, just to please Prabhupada, they would make an effort, and they would do it. They would double it. And in 73, he would get the double from 72, and then he'd say, now you double it next year again. Well, book distribution was really going everywhere. At one point, one senator of the United States said that if this Krishna consciousness movement spreads the way it's going to take over the U.S. government. That's how powerful we were in those days. It was really, really moving really fast. Books were going out and harinams were everywhere. And Prabhupada was preaching as much as he could, traveling, opening up centers, initiating devotees. We were buying temples. Many of the temples were churches that were no longer being used by the Christians. A lot of times they didn't even want to sell us. One priest said, I'd rather burn the temple, but burn the church than to give it to the Hare Krishnas. But what we did in Chicago, we came under another label and got the Chicago temple that way. Came under some cultural society. We drew up our own, charter. And then that way, we had to get around all of the obstacles because we were seen in those days as being, what we say, how to usually describe it, unusual. That's a nice word. Weird. We thought, yeah, there was some kind of cult that was trying to capture the youth and turn them into zombies. We went to many courts. They took us to court for brainwashing. Prabhupada said, yes, we can brainwash you. Your brain is dirty. So we were able to wash it. Illicit sex, intoxication, eating, and gamble. Your brain is dirty. But in 1977, March 18th, there was a landmark decision in our favor in the New York Supreme Court, and they gave us the stamp of approval saying that this movement, the judge actually, Judge Leahy, his name was, he actually studied this movement and understood it was a traditional ancient movement going back thousands of years coming from India. It was traditional, it was authorized. And so knowing that, he threw out all of these cases of brainwashing and said that this movement is, or this religious society, is a bona fide religious society and should be accepted in that way. Prabhupada said, yes, finally, I have now been successful. I've got the approval of people in very important places. Yes. So it was like that. And of course, Prabhupada left in the same year, 1977. But Prabhupada had 4 principles that he wanted to institute. And he actually developed these before he actually came to America. And that was, he put together this treatise, this long article, which was called the Gita Nagari Concept. And where he described what he wanted to do when he got to the West. Holy books, holy names, education and initiation, opening temples. These were 3 of the 4 steps that Prabhupada instituted. And the last step, of course, we're still trying to make it happen, and that is farm communities, financial dharma, back to the land, simple living. In 1977, when Prabhupada looked like he was going to soon leave the body, the devotee said to him, Srila Prabhupada, do you have any lamentation? In other words, there's something about your woman that you haven't instituted. And then Prabhupada remained quiet, he didn't answer. And he said, yes, I have one lamentation. And the devotee said, because you haven't finished Srimad Bhagavatam? Prabhupada said, no, because I haven't established these farm communities for Manashram Dharma to educate people in not only spiritual life, but in Varna. He said, this is my 50% of my movement is still yet to be finished. So he left it for us to do that. And now I'll try to open up these different, what we say, farm communities and have colleges on these places where we can educate people in Varna. Because everyone, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarya Manasrishya Bhutakanda Vibhagavasana, that everyone has a certain inclination towards a certain material activity. There's the Brahmins, there's the Kshatriyas, there's the Vaishyas, and then there's Sudras. These are the 4 Varnas. The Brahmins are the teachers, they're the priests, they're the educators. The Kshatriyas, they're the protectors. Kshatriya, Kshat means to protect, and Triya means from harm. Kshatriya means those who give protection, but they're not aggressors, they're fighters, but they're not aggressors for protection, and that's part of any, what we say, a civilized society. They have Kshatriya, and they're also managers. They know how to organize people, they know how to take care of people. These are the Kshatriyas, and then the Vaishyas are the breadbaskets. They grow agriculture, they do banking, commerce, and they take care of animals, especially cows. And then the Sudras are, they do arts and crafts, but they also support the other 3 varnas. Prabhupada wanted a system of education to teach these different categories of education within the different varnas, and he called it the Varnashram College. And then he also wanted devotees to go back to a more simplified lifestyle. As he said in 1973, he said, in 50 years, this Western civilization will collapse. It's collapsing now. Look, things are going through hell right now. And things are falling apart. Don't think it's going to get better. Forget it. It's not. It's going one way down. And this is all part of Lord Chaitanya's movement to spread Krishna consciousness. People are looking for, something more, something they can hang on to, and we have it. And this is the message of Sanatana Dharma, your relationship with the Supreme Lord was the foundation for success in everything you do in life, both materially and especially, of course, spiritually. So this was Prabhupada's vision to spread Krishna consciousness, and he wanted us to do that. I see you have a piece of land now. Now you have to make it happen. Work together in a cooperative way, and somehow or other find ways to bring this about, because these farm communities are really quite valuable. Because if we have to depend on the Western materialistic society for everything, we might find ourselves in a very difficult situation. Where shortages of food, shortages of energy, high inflation, and social unrest are going everywhere now, especially around the world. There's a lot of stuff. The news doesn't pick up on this stuff because they don't want this stuff to be known. They want to hide all of it, what's going on, but there's a big undercurrent right now. And Trump's making it happen anyway. He's pushing things. He's a nice guy, but still, he's most unpredictable. Anyway, so he's just one of the many leaders in the world who have a lot of influence. And so, as we see the world going today, we can align it with Srila Prabhupada's statements that this society is deteriorating. There's only one or two countries in the world that is going up. One of them is India. India is on the rise, spiritually and materially. Think about going back to India. Whatever you make here, of course we want you to stay here and preach, but at the same time, India is on the rise. It's really moving forward. Mr. Modi is a great leader. He loves our movement. Wherever he goes in the world, to other countries, he always goes to Hare Krishnas wherever he goes. He really appreciates Srila Prabhupada, and he glorifies him. So, and of course, there's a lot more I can say, but I don't want to get into the political aspect. But actually, India is moving really forward. It's going to be the leading country in the world after some time. And it's always leading in spirituality, but now it's also showing how we can also lead in material progress also. So Srila Prabhupada, he was a visionary. He was not only a great sadhu that could teach spiritual knowledge, but he had a vision on how things can unfold according to, as he said, the Vedic scheme. So Vedic culture is human culture. Western culture is cultureless. There's no culture in the West. When someone asked Mahatma Gandhi, "What do you think about Western culture?" He said, "I think it's a good idea." They should develop some kind of culture. Money is not a culture. And Prabhupada spoke about that. He said, money is not a foundation for the livelihood of people. Aesthetic values, moral values, spiritual values, family values. These are the things that motivate people towards human culture and ultimate higher consciousness. So this is Srila Prabhupada's movement. He was a revolutionary, not just a person who came here just to teach some spiritual. He said, I wanted to turn the whole world upside down and bring back Krishna culture, Krishna consciousness everywhere in the world. He thought big. And so he left it up to us. He put everything in place. And he left it us to continue his movement by expanding his ideas into a practical form of development, especially these ashram systems, farm communities, cow protection, and more or less a more simplified lifestyle. We depend on nature, not on what we say. What's his name? Con Edison. We depend on Krishna, and we depend on nature. And those who are pious, those that are religious, nature will always provide. Those who are sinful, then nature will restrict. So there will never be any problems if you're a devotee. The only problem is you have to tolerate what's going on around you. Some will not plug into that as a way of finding solutions to the livelihood. We have everything that Prabhupada gave us in nature also is there to make sure that whatever we need, spiritually and materially, is there. And Prabhupada said, grow your own food, make your own cloth. In other words, grow silk and cotton and make cloth. He said, learn herbs and make your own medicines. You don't need any doctors. Is there any doctors? He said, you don't need doctors. You can do everything through herbology, learning herbs and medicine, herbs for medicine, both curative and preventative, both. And then the last thing he said, build your own homes. He said, these four things, this will be more like a lifestyle which is free from hard work and anxiety, just working with whatever nature gives you. And nature is abundant. I said, the world can support 10 times the amount of people that are in the world now. The leaders are complaining too many people in the world. That's what they're saying. Bill Gates is saying too many people in the world. The Prophet said there's too many sinful people. And that's the problem. When there's sinful people, then nature withholds. When there's piety, not even spirituality, when there's piety, and then, of course, nature provides. Devotees never find themselves in any shortages because they're devotees, and Krishna always takes care of his devotees 100%. If we allow Krishna to take care of us. And so, yeah, so this is Prabhupada's idea for going back to a more natural lifestyle. And Prabhupada did that himself. When he came to New Vrindavan, I was there. Prabhupada loved the whole idea of the New Vrindavan scheme. He said, this is the way Krishna lived. And he came there, he was so happy, he was like a little kid. I told one story the other day when I was in Atlanta about when Srila Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan. We had 3 farms. The main farm was called Bahulavan. Then we had another farm for Grihastas. There was a few Grihasta couples, and it was called Madhavan. And then we had a ashram way in the hills, away from everyone. It was about 2 miles from the main road, and that was called Vrindavan. So I lived there for about 5 years as a brahmachari. And during that time, Prabhupada came. He came to that farm and he walked all the way through the woods, 2 miles, over streams, up hills, and came all the way just to come to that Vrindavan farm because he had heard about it. We also had deities there, Rama Rishisi Radha, what are their names? Radha Vrindavan. So Prabhupada came, he sat in the Vyasa, and I was there. I remember Radha Swami was also there. And Prabhupada gave a lecture. And the temple was about as big as this room here was. That's how big
It's
the
a
temple
2 room and a loft.
Hmm?
2 room and a loft on the top, right? He slept in the loft on that night.
That came later. Oh yeah, that was a loft. Yeah, there was a stairway going up.
Yes.
And that's where we all slept. 40 bodies laying side by side. You had to take care of nature in the middle of the night. What was the problem? Because you had to step over everybody and go down the stairs and be quiet. And then sometimes it was in the middle of winter. We had no bathrooms. Everything was the woods. The woods was the bathroom. So anyway, Prabhupada came and he sat down and he gave a lecture, a short lecture on Krishna consciousness. And he had had brought his entourage with him, some of his leading disciples, Krishna Maharaj and a few others. And the local devotees asked we were there. So at one time, one point, Prabhupada finished, and Krishna Maharaj, his servant, said, Srila Prabhupada always wants cookies at the end to distribute to the kids. So bring the cookies. And then he was speaking to Radhanath, and he was brahmachari at the time. He said, well, we didn't make any cookies. And he said, no, Prabhupada wants the cookies, bring the cookies. So he said, some Radha Swami's thinking, what am I going to do? They want cookies and we don't have any cookies. But then he thought, we just finished the offering on the altar. So he went on the altar and picked up the deity's plate, silver bowls, and started going towards Prabhupada with this. And I had cooked the offering, I remember. It was gulab jamun, there was parathas, banana chutney, one sabji, a few other items on the plate. So, and we just finished the offering. So he's carrying the plate to give it to Prabhupada because we didn't have any cookies. And Krishna Maharaj sees it. He said, what are you doing? Where are you going with that? Prabhupada doesn't want that. He wants cookies. So there was a group of people around Prabhupada in front of me. Krishna was here, Maharaj came this way, but then when he was refused, he went around this side. And he came right up to Prabhupada and put it on the table. Prabhupada said, no. And Prabhupada took the plate, he put it on his lap and started eating from it. And before he got to the gulab jamun, he bit into it. And when he bit into it, the juice went squirting out. And everyone said, "Ja!" They got baited by gulab jamun juice. And some of the juice dripped down to the Vyasa-san. We kept that Vyasa-san as a memorial. Gulab jamun spots. So, and then Prabhupada he was so happy. He was just eating and giving it out. And finally, he finished everything. And then people wanted more, so Prabhupada started taking the bowls and giving it to the devotees. And these were brand new silver bowls we had just gotten from the deities. And then we were thinking, oh no. The devotees are never going to get this. So, and then finally we thought, what are we going to do here? So then there was an announcement, I forgot, from the temple president said, all those the devotees that got the bowls from Prabhupada, they belong to the deities. Can you please return? And without a doubt, everyone gave the bowls back. So, Prabhupada was so happy being there. It was like a little kid. It was like he was just there in the valley, just one of the cowherd boys. So that was a nice experience that we had. And Prabhupada he would go from place to place, and he would always give out cookies to the kids. And even today, some of the devotees who are grown up now, they said, I got a cookie from Prabhupada when I was a kid. It was a big thing to have that. So, and there's so many, when we say, episodes in trying to spread Krishna consciousness that were really unbelievable. One time Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, and he had his little room that was a small distance away from the temple. And he would go and visit the temple from his room during certain times of the day, especially for the early morning program. And he had a pair of these white moccasin shoes. And he'd leave them on the outside of his door. And so when he would go, he'd put the shoes on and walk to the temple. And then come back and put the shoes at the door and go inside. So one devotee was thinking, I want to get those shoes. So he went to the marketplace and found the exact pair and bought the duplicate. And he was thinking that I'm going to switch it from Prabhupada's. Not looking. So he's all ready. He makes his plan. He's watching. Now Prabhupada is just coming back from the temple, and he always takes his shoes off when he goes in. But this time, Prabhupada walked in with his shoes. big, big, giant doors with keyholes. So the devotees decided to look through the keyhole to see Prabhupada, what he's doing, and then they saw an eye coming back from the You're watching me, but I'm watching you. See the Prabhupada had to go through all of this. The Western devotees, they really tested Prabhupada. They loved him, they had faith in him, but they always wanted to learn more. There are many nice stories. One time Prabhupada was in Hawaii, and they came to Prabhupada, they said, you know, in your room the toilet doesn't work anymore. Prabhupada said, get it fixed. So after some time, Prabhupada asked, did you get it fixed? And the boy said, yeah, it's fixed. Did you try it? Prabhupada, it works. Did you try it? It works. And Prabhupada said, come on. So he goes into the kitchen and he makes some chapati dough. And he rolls them into balls. He says, here, you place them in the toilet. So they were thinking, what is that? But they did it anyway. Practical. So you never know what it was like to be with Prabhupada. It's just a most amazing experience. It could be really, really strict and heavy, or he can be so soft and gentle. It was like both. And he said, I have the mind of an English army officer and I have the heart of a big army woman. So yeah, Prabhupada had a strong mind. He said, this is, the devotee has a very strong mind, but he has a very soft heart. That's a Vaishnava. That's a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada taught us a lot. If you listen to Shruta Kirti, he's been traveling around the world. So I have to get him to come here.
He came once. He had given 2 days classes, and I just met him in Pune.
Just now. He's traveling more now. And so he came to my retreat in April, my conference. So if I mentioned to him that maybe Sean will like to host me, he just tells all of these amazing episodes of Srila Prabhupada's life.
He was carrying Srila Prabhupada's sleepers in Pune, and we were able to take them.
Yeah, we carries Prabhupada's sleepers. It was very, very stories. The one story that I remember was when Prabhupada was in Mexico, he had a flight to Venezuela. So Shruta Kirti was going to Maharaj Swami. Both of them were traveling with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was leaving. One Indian lady gave him some wrapping, and it was prasad for him to carry. So he gave him the Shruta Kirti. And when Prabhupada got on the plane, he always sat by the window. He always wanted to look out the window and see what the material world looks like from here. Oh, it looks like matchboxes down there. And Prabhupada like that. And Prabhupada would never go to the bathroom except when they put the seatbelt sign on just before they landed. He would get up and go to the bathroom. And the stewardess would, excuse me, sir, you have to sit down. Prabhupada didn't hear him. So one time they were on a plane and Prabhupada said, all right, Shruta Kirti sitting in the middle seat, Maharaj is there. He said, all right, let's have some prasad. So they opened it up, it was moody, it was puffed rice. So they give it to Prabhupada, he takes some, he gives back to Shruta Kirti, and gives them the Paramahansa, and they're eating. The stewardess walks over and she says, oh, that looks very nice. And she reaches over past Paramahansa into Shruta Kirti's plate, starts eating it. The stewardess. The Prabhupada's just watching. He said that, and Shruta Kirti tells the story, he said, I couldn't believe it. She was just taking from my plate and eating it. So Prabhupada said, ask her if she can bring some hot milk. So they asked her, and she said, yes, I'll go to business class and I'll bring you some hot milk. And so after some time, the story continues where that same stewardess, the devotees in Mexico were doing book distribution in what we call the outlands, in more rural areas. They knocked on one door, and that same stewardess, and she opened the door, and her whole house was full of pictures of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Simply by eating that prasadam, she became a devotee. That was her only contact with Krishna consciousness. And then she found out more about our movement and started to, get some books. And then when she saw the devotees, there were two brahmacharis who came. They were amazed. She told them the whole story how that she met Prabhupada on the airplane. So Prabhupada had a way of attracting people in the most, I would say, unusual way. So the life of Srila Prabhupada, there's so many books now devotees are writing their experiences and their travels with Srila Prabhupada. This is really a Para story. I promised that, didn't I? It's not my favorite story.
I read it on Facebook, so I'm not sure like how detailed it was.
So I was in New Vrindavan. I was the cook in the brahmachari ashram. I was the head cook because I was the only cook. So Kirtananda Swami notified all of the persons who could cook, said make some for Prabhupada. Prabhupada is coming into the airport. I'm going to meet him at the airport. Let's make a big plate of mostly sweets. So I was cooking para for the deities at the time. So I thought, all right, I'll make para for Prabhupada. But I wanted to go and meet Prabhupada because some devotees were actually being given a chance to go and meet Prabhupada at the airport, but I wasn't selected, so I was unhappy because of that. So I was listening to one devotee sing the prayers to the Brahmasamiti prayers, one devotee named Maharaj, she sang so beautiful. And I was cooking at the same time, and I was crying. I was crying because I was hearing the song, and at the same time I was sad because I couldn't go see Prabhupada. And so I was cooking, and then when I finished the para, it didn't come out at all. It was sticky, gooey, and brown, and I had some real nice ones that I made for the deities. So I said, I'm not going to give these to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, who's this guy who cooks? Just get him out of the kitchen. So I said, all right, I want to avoid that. So I had these nice ones. But then when the devotees came around to collect the sweets from the different cooks, I wasn't there. So Radhanath Swami, he was brahmachari, he came into the kitchen looking for the para, and he took the ones that I made, the brown ones, the sticky ones, the gooey ones. And then when I came back, I said, oh, my spiritual life is finished. But then the next day, Kirtananda Swami, he was really incredulous. He said, he came up to me, he said, I saw Prabhupada do something I never saw him do before. He ate 3 of your paras, one after another. That was the story. That's why I'm still here. Special mercy from the spiritual master. Yeah, you get special mercy and carries with you. So yeah, that was my good fortune to have that opportunity to cook for Prabhupada. That was the only time. Because I didn't know how to cook, but we didn't have anybody else, so I got the service. But yeah, so Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan a few times. When he came one time, there was one cow, her name was Kalia. It was a black and white jersey. Prabhupada came earlier at a different year, 74, and he liked Kalia's milk because it was really creamy and rich. So Kalia had moved to the brahmachari farm where we were. And when Prabhupada came up, he walked 2 miles through the woods. When he got to the precincts of the brahmachari ashram, Kalia was there and she saw Prabhupada. And she ran fast right towards Prabhupada. And then when she got to Prabhupada, she stopped and she turned around and she led Prabhupada to the ashram. And, beautiful, beautiful experience. And so Prabhupada really liked her milk. It really was very creamy and very, very, what do you say, tasty. We used to get a lot of milk. We had nice cows and we would drink. Every night we would have popcorn and milk. That was the evening meal. Those was doing this. Popcorn and milk. And the thing is, we would drink a lot of milk, and the devotees were drinking too much milk. So most of the devotees, after some time, started to get sick, and Prabhupada came. And he said to us, "You're drinking too much milk." He said, "No more than 1 pound, no less than 1/2 pound." So that's 17.2 ounces is 1.5 pounds of that, which includes all milk products. He said, milk products are necessary for nourishing brain tissue, but not too much and not too little. It should be taken in proportion. Milk is as it says, the miracle food for old men and babies. Yes. So Prabhupada came, and I saw him a few times, and then I saw him once in New York. When we came to see Prabhupada in New York City, that was in 1975. We came to the New York Brooklyn Temple at the time. I remember we were on a morning walk with Prabhupada. I was way in the back, and Prabhupada was walking through Central Park, the biggest park in New York, probably one of the biggest parks in the world. And there's many roadways going through the park. So Prabhupada's walking on the grassy area, and we're following. And then at one point he stopped and turned around and looked at all of us. He said, he pointed to the cars whizzing by, he says, "The man is running on 4 wheels, and the dog is running on 4 legs. What's the difference?" And nobody said anything. Because we didn't want to make a mistake. And finally, Prabhupada gave the answer. He said, "No difference. The man is running for sense gratification. The dog is running for sense gratification. The business is the same." So Prabhupada could see it's not what kind of body you have, it's what you're doing and with your life that is important. So when he saw that the human species were wasting their life chasing after ephemeral forms of happiness, a form of sense gratification and economic development, he could see people haven't really understood the purpose of human life. He based a lot of his lectures on that. One time he was walking in Denver and they stopped by a tree. And on the ground of the tree there was all these bird droppings. So Prabhupada pointed to the bird droppings. Now you could imagine this. And he asked all of us, "What does that mean?" He pointed to the bird droppings underneath the tree. He says, "What does that mean?" So what would you say? What would you say? So nobody said anything. But actually, a few devotees tried to guess, but they all probably said, "Even the bird is detached to this tree." That means even the human beings get attached to something. So even animals develop attachment. And so this is the nature of the conditioned soul. They develop attachment to something material, even in the lower species of life. Prabhupada was always instructing us through nature and through his own, words, what is the philosophy of life? What is where we should focus our attention and what we should pull back away from that is just useless. Prabhupada was very diligent in helping us understand, and he spoke so much. We have more than 4,000 lectures to Srila Prabhupada. That's just his lectures, but to speak of his books. And then, of course, a lot of stuff wasn't even recorded. And for those that were actually lost in time. So Prabhupada really, in those 11 short years that he was here, he did so much. So much. Because he was really, he would take rest between 10:30 and 11 at night, and he would get up at midnight, sometimes 12:30, sleep an hour and a half. And for the early morning hours, he would just take the books of the previous acharyas or the commentaries on Bhagavatam, and then he would read and study them, and then he would add his own commentary to the verses, and that was the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because he wanted to help us understand this knowledge according to our level of understanding. That's why he wrote his purports for the Western mentality. A lot of them. And he was tirelessly every night, no matter where he was always doing that. And he would stay up the whole night, and then around 4 or 5, he would start chanting his rounds. 6 o'clock, he would gather some of his disciples and they'd go on a morning walk. And then from 6 to 7, they would walk and they would light up at the temple just at 7 and drink the deities. And then they would have Guru Puja and Prabhupada would come back to his place. At breakfast, his breakfast was some fruit, some chickpeas, some roasted cashews, and a sandesh. That was his breakfast. And when it was cold, he would ask for grains. So one time, he asked for halva. This was in Vrindavan, it was quite cold. So there was one Bhagaji, he was an Indian gentleman who got attached to Prabhupada and started cooking for Prabhupada. He was a local person. So Bhagaji had gotten some wheat germ from my devotee who came from America. You know what wheat germ is? It's kind of like this bottle of wheat. It's supposed to be really nutritious. He makes cereal out of it. So Prabhupada said, I want halva this morning. So Bhagaji was thinking, I'm going to make Prabhupada wheat germ halva, and he's going to really like it because it's really nutritious and tasty. So he made this halva. He got all excited and brought it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, what's this? Prabhupada, this is wheat germ halva. Prabhupada said, take it away. Bhagaji, he was devastated. Oh, it was the worst thing. And he was thinking, oh my God, I couldn't please Srila Prabhupada. So he went in front of the deities and started to cry. He was praying to Bhakti Siddhanta. He said, I tried to, I wanted to please your disciple and I couldn't please him. And he was crying. And after some time, he hears Prabhupada's voice, Bhagaji, bring the halva. So if you ever get in trouble with Prabhupada, you can pray to Bhakti Siddhanta. You have a chance. So, yeah, that's another interesting story. One devotee tells that story. He was personally person for that one. Yeah, so Prabhupada was very precise on how things should go on. And he was always experimental when he thought it was worth trying, but that's not so much. He was very traditional. He liked his prashadam. Shuddha used to cook for him. Prabhupada was saying, he cooks very nice American prashadam. He's making chapatis, rice, dal, sabji. Very nice American prashadam. In other words, and we didn't know how to spice. One time Prabhupada was in his room and it was around breakfast time. So some Indian ladies came from the outside. They said, we're going to cook Prabhupada's breakfast. And the devotees were there just to prepare Prabhupada's simple practice. They said, no, we're going to do it. We want to make something nice for Prabhupada. So they cooked this feast for Prabhupada for the breakfast, all kinds of fancy stuff that looks like, it looks like lunch. So the devotees, all right, let the ladies do it. And Prabhupada said, where's breakfast? So finally they brought this big meal and Prabhupada looked at it. And they came in and they were so happy. Prabhupada said, what is this? This is your breakfast, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, this is not breakfast, it's breakhead. Breakhead. He liked this simple, some fruit, some chickpeas, and there's a little sweet. And for lunch, chapatis, rice, dal, sabji, bas. And the evening meal, once in a while he would do something different. One time there was a movement inside the movement to stop sugar because the devotees thought sugar is very unhealthy. So they started taking sugar out of all the temples. And one day Prabhupada found out, so two devotees were responsible for it. So Prabhupada called them in the room in the night, and Prabhupada brought a big bowl of sugar in, and he had some porridge. And they were sitting there, and Prabhupada was dipping the porridge in the sugar and eating it. Right in front of them looking. And Prabhupada said, Krishna likes sugar. So he had ways of teaching us that were quite correct. Prabhupada was really, the way he did things was unusual, but always effective. Always effective. Many stories of life. Prabhupada, so some of the book, I just got a new book just put out by one of my senior female disciples, Govinda Das. She was at the, did you meet her? Anybody meet her at Sarasanga? Yeah. Yeah, she spent a lot of time with Srila Prabhupada. She was the person who brought Tulsi worship into Krishna consciousness. She actually got a Tulsi plant and brought it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada started the beginning Tulsi worship because of her. So she had a lot of personal association with Prabhupada. And in those days, devotees, it was like a family. There was many devotees. So Prabhupada was always there with the devotees, speaking to them, talking to them, instructing them, guiding them. He would always do that. He was very fatherly, very available. But later, when the movement got bigger, it became less Prabhupada and didn't have as much time. So he was traveling around, preaching a lot, writing books, and opening up temples. So personalism started to become less. And that's how the movement expands. Okay, these are some things that we can speak about Prabhupada's life. It's really interesting because we should know two things about Prabhupada. One is the philosophy he gave us and the personality of Prabhupada. We should know what is his personality, why he does what he does, why he thinks. Because there are many Vaishnava movements, but our movement is Prabhupada. He's giving Vaishnavism accordingly to a certain perspective based on his practice of Krishna consciousness. And that's what we follow. So, yeah, we should hear more about Prabhupada, listen to his lectures, read his books, and of course, associate with his devotees and ask them, what was it like when Prabhupada was around, those who had that association? I didn't get much association because I always had service when Prabhupada came to the temple. So for me, it was really hard. me to get any personal association, but I did get to see him a few times. But there's devotees who spent so much time with Prabhupada. They gave him a lot of personal instructions, guidance, like that. So yeah, if you know Prabhupada, then you know this movement. Okay, so any questions? Mataji? Yes, Lavita?
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving such a wonderful class talking about the glories of Prabhupada and the early struggles of all of you disciples of Srila Prabhupada. I want to know if you can share the memories of your initiation, where it took place and how.
Well, at that time, Prabhupada was traveling a lot, so in different places he had his senior devotees, and they were the managers, and so they would recommend their followers to Prabhupada by letter. And then they would send them names, and Prabhupada would send back the names. So I got my name like that. And I was recommended. And I took initiation in 1973 on Radhastami. And it was, I remember September 5th, 1973, it was Radhastami. So yeah. Prabhupada gave me my name by mail. And my first letter, usually you get the name of the first letter of your name is the same, but mine wasn't. It was a different one. So I was thinking, what happened? But then my last name was the letter that he used for my very spiritual name, surname. So yeah, so that's, I don't have really a lot. I remember one time I was with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had come to the river down, and we were all gathering, and then we were offering Prabhupada Guru Puja. And one of our devotees, the local devotee, was singing the Guru Puja song. And when he finished the prayer, he stopped. And Prabhupada turned to his secretary, who was one sannyasi. He said, sing. And then he started to sing Namo Om. And then he also went into chanting. And then we were wondering, why did Prabhupada do that? Later on, it was understood, Prabhupada explained that to worship the Guru without worshiping Krishna is Mayabhav. And to worship Krishna without worshiping the Guru is Sahajya. So they have to be worshipped together. Like that. Because the Mayavadis, is everything is Guru. The Guru is everything. And why? Because they want to become Guru. They worship the Guru so they can also become Guru. That's the Mayavadis. The Sahajyas, they don't have any real understanding of the principle of Guru. They think they can go directly to Krishna. And then they try to imitate Krishna's pastimes and speak about them. But the Sahajya means one who takes things cheaply. One who doesn't have real understanding of the process. So there's a class of spiritualists who are categories. Because they'll imitate Krishna's pastimes like that. And then they think that's devotional. So therefore, Guru and Krishna have to be simultaneously worshipped. That's why when we worship in the morning, we always worship Guru and Krishna. And the first thing we worship is we worship Guru first. And we sing the Guru Vastakam prayers, and that's the beginning of our morning program. Yeah. Yeah.
So Maharaj, there is a kind of, saying, I don't know the root of it, but it says that for simple people, Krishna consciousness or Krishna is very easy. And for difficult people, the Krishna consciousness is very difficult. What does it mean actually?
I know the verse. It's in the Bhagavatam, Candramauli was preaching to Dhruva Maharaj. He was giving him some advice, and Dhruva wasn't taking it. Prabhupada one purport starts to talk, and he says, some people say Krishna consciousness is difficult, and some people say Krishna consciousness is easy. He poses the question, and then after some time he makes the answer. It's okay, so I'm going to ask you. Those who say it's easy, raise your hand. Easy. All right, and those who say it's difficult. Okay. You're both right. Because what's the factor that makes it easy? And without it, that factor it's difficult. And Prabhupada said, if you're determined, it's easy. Without determination, it's difficult. So you have to add that element of determination in your practice in Krishna classes. Then it becomes easy. So, what is then you might say, well, how do I get determination? Then you associate with devotees who have that element. But another way to enhance determination, as Prabhupada said, stop trying to enjoy this material world. And then your determination for Krishna consciousness will increase.
So you were saying that different times at that time, like mostly people were living in California, and we always hear that even though many of Srila Prabhupada disciples did not have much association of Srila Prabhupada, and it's been 50 years, almost 50 years, he's out, he's not in present of our lives, but still all the disciples are going strong and continue. So, no, Miss most of like I will just speak about you. So what make you keep going after Srila Prabhupada departure and from this?
Well, I have good association. I had very first class good association.
Yeah, that makes it.
And that made it difficult. I had a Siksha Guru who was really fixed in Krishna consciousness, who was giving me Prabhupada, but also giving me the understanding of how to practice Krishna consciousness. So I had that association continuously for years, and I was just gobbling it up. Yeah, so I was fortunate to have that. But the main thing is now in my own practice, I chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra before I do anything. I always chant 16 rounds, and then I begin my day. Yeah, so I get up. I don't even take a bath because it's a waste of time. I go right to the mantra and I chant 16 rounds. When I finish that, then I take my daily bath. So I focus on the holy name. And I recommend devotees do that. If you really want to, what we say, increase the quality of your Krishna consciousness, chant early. Chant early. You'll see there'll be a big difference in your devotional. You'll be able to deal with the difficulties you encounter throughout the day, whether it's spiritual or material. You have the mercy of Krishna you're carrying with you when you chant your rounds, especially by fulfilling the instructions of the spiritual master, which he says, chant 16 rounds. You probably said, if you haven't chanted your 16 rounds, you should know that at any moment you could be victimized by life. That protects you because you're honoring the spiritual master's instruction, along with the potency of chanting Hare Krishna. Very powerful. Any questions? Yeah.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna. We have sannyasis, and then we have what did Prabhupada's view was on sannyasis we have Matajis who are becoming, they want to give diksha, and what was his view, or what was his?
We're still trying to work that out. The TBC just went through the last spiritual bout in February this year. I can't touch that that subject because it's really broad. And it's controversial, there's so many important things. I have my opinion, and a lot of people have their own also opinion, based on what Srila Prabhupada said, and the interpretations of what Prabhupada said were also different. So you see different interpretations.
Not to fall.
So stand on. But the BBC said we haven't clarified the position of Guru yet. Guru Tattva is not clear. It's the most difficult Tattva to understand. And so they're still trying to work out what is Guru Tattva. And because it's easy when you have Guru and disciples sitting together in the village, which was the tradition. The Guru was there, the disciples were there, and everything was like that. And now we have a worldwide movement where the spiritual masters are all over, and they're also doing administration work too, which is not really the business of a Guru. Guru should be the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas should do administration work. So the conclusion of the last meeting was they couldn't make a decision because they haven't had a clear understanding of Guru Tattva. So we have a Shastra committee that's part of the GBC. They're meant to study the books, study Srila Prabhupada's statements, and give recommendations. So that's an ongoing process. We have one lady who's been given that position. Her name is Narayani. And I can say that she is qualified to become Guru, but then again, it's questionable whether anyone else is, at least from that point of view. Anyway. So stand by. I mean, don't stand by, but you can read the reports because there's some tension coming from both sides. Both sides are strong about what they believe in, but still we have to come to some conclusion. There's a lot of considerations. What does it mean for a woman to take up that position? It's not like a man. It's different.
Maharaj, if the society was to evolve, would that bring a rift or would it bring a union? If the society was to evolve with sannyasi, if we were to evolve in the sense that we had Matajis who were giving, diksha and they were sannyasis, in your opinion, would that bring a rift or would it bring a union? What do you think?
I'll talk to you privately.
Got on camera.
But women don't take sannyas before initiation. If women want to, at a certain stage, they can take what is called renunciation. They put on white and they go to a holy place and practice Krishna consciousness for the remainder of their life. They worship the deity in that holy place and then they finish their life and go back to Godhead. So women are not, according to Shastras, given the formal position of sannyas. But they still can practice renunciation, because that's the principle. But it's different how it plays itself out. So we have many women in our society who have taken on white, that means they're finished with household life, and they're fully engaged in devotional service. And many of them are attached to certain places in Vrindavan, like that, or in Mayapur, or some holy place. But these things still need more and more discussion. What is the Vanaprastha ashram? What is the duties of a Vanaprastha? Because Vanaprastha, as it's been given in tradition, can't apply in the Western countries. It doesn't work. So we have to redefine Vanaprastha ashram. And that's by hearing Prabhupada's instructions and trying to formulate them. So that's also an ongoing process. Yeah. So a worldwide movement it's not so easy to manage. You still have, and you have people from different cultures who have different conceptions of how things should go on accordingly. So you have that also. The what we say the cultural aspects of spiritual practice also, how that enters in. So we're trying to amalgamate everything into what is called Vaishnava culture to transcend all of the other cultures. We have unity, but we don't have agreement necessarily. There's disagreements on how things should go. And that's a whole process. But things look good. Moving Krishna's consciousness is spreading fast. Temples are opening, devotees are being made, books are going out, kirtans are traveling around the world. So movement is spreading fast. But there's challenges, obviously. There's challenges from the inside and there's challenges from the outside. We're not worried about the challenges from the outside. You know, challenges from the inside are the ones that are more dangerous. Okay, so we'll stop there. Oh, some more questions?
You were saying yesterday about something about Patels.
Patels? What did I say?
Some kind of thing you were telling yesterday.
Oh, I was just telling a joke. I was just saying one time there was in one temple, the person in charge got up in front of all of the devotees and he said there's one car blocking all of the other cars, they can't get out. It belongs to Mr. Patel. Could Mr. Patel move his car? And everybody left the temple. It was kind of like humorous. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yes.
So when we face challenges, Maharaj, in any stage of life, should we take it as like the Krishna's desire, or should we fight back to overcome those?
Life means challenges. Everyone has challenges, no matter who you are, no matter what position you are in society, spiritual or material, there's always obstacles, there's always challenges. But in Krishna consciousness, we can learn to change challenges and opportunities for spiritual advancement. Prabhupada also said, every cloud has a silver lining for devotees, not for the non-devotees. So, okay, why is Krishna put me in this situation? What can I learn from this? How can I become more attached to Krishna? How can I learn something from this? Seeing obstacles as opportunities for advancement. That's how a devotee sees. But sometimes initially when something happens in the reverse, we get overwhelmed and we become a little negative. Sometimes we lose our faith, but we shouldn't. We should understand that, Krishna is allowing it to happen so we can become more serious in our practice of devotional service. It says, what does it say? If you want to make a diamond, you put it under pressure. You put coal under pressure for a long time, it becomes a diamond. So if you're getting some pressure, you're getting some resistance, it's good. Because then you use your intelligence, your ability to pray to Krishna, and then you can turn that into opportunities for greater knowledge, greater advancement, and at the same maybe more detachment from something material. every obstacle has two sides to it. If you see it as an obstacle, it's one way. If you see it as an opportunity, then you can take advantage of it. I mean, if you're dying, then you become more and more serious in hearing Krishna's Leela. So dying actually accelerates your Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
So when a difficulty becomes an opportunity to purify yourself and go back and back and back. Yeah. Okay, so I have to leave early tomorrow morning, so I do have to leave. I'm sorry, but so thank you all for being here tonight, and so and thank you for all of your wonderful donations and all of your wonderful prasadam and tonight all of your wonderful questions. And hope to, if you're going to go to New York for the ashram, I'll see you there. So I do have to leave because my flight is early morning tomorrow, and I also have to do a few things to prepare for that. Well, thank you very much, and
Ki Jai.
Let's say 3 times Haribol by thanking Maharaj for his association, guidance, and love to Charlotte community. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yes.